Yo, what's going on, guys? Jay here. I know it's been a minute and we've had a crazy summer for rap and hip hop. I mean, honestly, it's been amazing, and that's what I really want to talk about today. Is this is the summer that hip hop survived. This is the summer that hip hop bounced back. This is the summer that hip hop proved everyone wrong. And there are a couple reasons for that. I'm going to get into them by going through the calendar of releases that we had. Because you might have noticed on the channel, on the IG, I've been inactive for a while. And, my apologies on that. I do love making content. I'm just busy with life. But I can't not just let this summer go by and not speak about any of the amazing projects that we have. There are so many that I wanted to concoct reviews for and just didn't get to it. But I have shared my thoughts on some of these projects on an app called Echo. This is not sponsored, but if you're if you're a rap head, definitely check it out. It's a great even just a music head. It's a great platform where people can share their opinions on music and rate them. My account over there, it's called Jason MTTH. Definitely check me out there. Check out the IG Hip Hop. TikTok is the same, and be sure to like and subscribe. So, what I want to get into today is again the summer of 2025, where before this, and I've made videos on this in the past, people have really been saying that hip hop is dying. That's a narrative that ended last year and started this year. And 2025 for hip hop up until summer was kind of weak. It was sparse. There was not much going on, even in the underground, which kind of hurts to say, because for a long time when people would say to me, oh, rap's dying over the last 2 years, I'm like, you're not looking in the right place. You're not looking at the right artists. But up until the end of May, it was really, really dry. At least I felt personally. If you disagree, let me know in the comments what you were bumping, what came out that I'm just overlooking. Because, I mean, main releases is really just music by Playboi Carti. And that was a good album. I liked it. I'm a Carti fan. But nothing amazing. Nothing amazing, to be honest. And yeah, like I said, a lot of these albums, I've just wanted a space to talk about with you guys. I'm going to share my opinion. I would love if you could share yours with me in the comments. I appreciate you tuning in today. And let's start it off. So I'm going to be starting like halfway through May. I'm going pretty off the cuff today as well, just so you know. I don't have any serious detail preparing those. So it's going to be my raw, unfiltered thoughts. Thank you for tuning in. First album I want to talk about, and again, I'm starting at the end of May. That's where summer started for me. It's where it starts in my eyes. First major release, Glockavelli by Key Glock. Now, this wasn't anything crazy big. It did 34,000 first week, which in my mind is a dub for Key Glock. His last album, Glaucoma 2, did I think 28,000 first week. And that album was not just popular, it didn't just have hits. It was well revered by a lot of people. I don't think there was anyone who didn't dislike that album. That's one of those trap albums that really bridged the gap of being popular with casual hip-hop fans. And people like myself who are listening to a lot of the new music coming out were able to listen to that and be like, man, Glaucoma 2 bangs. So many fun songs on there. So I was excited for Glockavelli. I'm not rating it the highest. It's probably like a mid-6 to a high 6 for me. But that's still an enjoyable album that I go back to. Overall, just very fun. It's just hype, but like, it's just that good trap music. Like, honestly, if there's like a baseline for like what the perfect example of trap music is, Key Glock is 100% that guy. If you haven't tapped into Key Glock, I would recommend for sure. And he's someone who, like I mentioned, he had an increase in his sales numbers since his last album. He's someone who is revered by casual fans and hip hop heads alike, and we'll see if his trajectory continues to grow. I haven't seen as much, bounce around Glockavelli as there was Glaucoma 2, but that doesn't mean it's not still sticking. The other album that I grabbed from May that I enjoyed, I would also have in like the mid-6 range, maybe closer to a lower 6, was 13 Months of Sunshine by Amine. Amine is someone I've been watching and following pretty closely since his come up. Caroline Limbo, for me, is the peak. And, I like 2.5. I like Kate Tremine. They were more like light projects to me, nothing I was revisiting a bunch. So 13 Months of Sunshine I was very excited for. And it didn't necessarily disappoint me. Like I said, the summer of hip-hop, this was that, right? But you'll notice it is a slow build. We don't really start getting there till July. And based off what I'm saying about May and what you're going to see me saying about June, you're going to be like, wow, was this really the summer that hip-hop came back? And then July and August hit, and you're like, holy crap. So keep that in mind, because I'm not throwing strays at 13 Months of Sunshine. It was a good album. It was a nice life update from Amine. I'm just not the biggest fan of the consistent like bounce kind of EDM inspired production he went for on here that was prevalent on Cage for Amine. I think it was done maybe a little better there than it was here, but there were still good highlights. Like I think it was the first or second track with Leon Thomas. I like that a lot. I didn't necessarily think it was bad or anything like that. Like I said, good album. Just didn't move me too far. Now we're moving on to June. So that's the end of May. It was pretty light. Couple of releases there, nothing crazy. Now talking about June. It's kind of the same thing. The first major release was the Carter 6. Now, this is an album that I do have a review for on this channel. Feel free to check it out if you want to hear like my full unfiltered thoughts, because I'll be honest, I haven't revisited this album since then. Welcome to the Carter 6. Whatever the first track after the intro is, it's still the only really good one. It sold 108,000 first week, which obviously by hip-hop standards is a success. Not a lot of rappers are selling over 100,000 in the rap space right now. But for Lil Wayne, if this album was good, it would have sold a lot better. There was a lot of controversy around this release in terms of the quality of the album, in terms of the vinyl selling he did. I was seeing that the full album wasn't included on it, some stuff with that. I don't know. It was weird. This album came and went. People were hating on it for a month, and then now no one talks about it. And this is, I guess, just a reminder that this album came out and that it wasn't very good. But I'm not going to dog on it. I have a whole video doing that if you want to check it out. But it's a reminder that it came out within the last, 3-4 months, which is crazy. It feels like it was a while ago. Now, the next one I want to talk about here, this kind of came out the same day as the Carter 6. Lotus by Lil Sims. Lil Sims, incredible rapper who I've always had an enormous amount of respect for ever since I've heard Sometimes I Might Be Introvert for the first time. She is clearly amazing. Wordsmith, lyricist, incredible rapper. Lotus, I'm going to be honest, I saw this album get some love online. I think this definitely has its group of people who love it. And as someone who's loved every Lil Sims release, other than Drop 7, since Sometimes I Might Be Introvert, again, I don't know if I was disappointed. I'll be very, very blunt with you guys right now. I've only given this album one full listen. But again, I was underwhelmed. I haven't really felt the need or the desire to revisit it. And I think that definitely that inflow production was missing. This is definitely the production was not as gripping as I'm used to from Lil Sims, and of course that's due to a rift between her and her old producer Inflow. That doesn't mean this album is bad by any standards. I would still probably rate it around maybe a low 7. I don't know. To be honest, I don't even know if I feel comfortable rating it like that. I only listened to it that one time. I will revisit it in the future because I do, like I mentioned, I do respect Sims a lot and think she's a great artist. Last album for June that was pretty major. This is one I have not even listened to in full yet. But this is like, other than, Glockavelli and the Carter 6, this is a mainstream hip-hop release. This is Lil Tecca, his album Dopamine, which I saw, again, get a good amount of love online. I know some good friends of mine really enjoyed this album. I enjoyed the fuck out of Tech. I think I have a review of Tech on this page, maybe on the YouTube if you want to check for that. Lil Tech is good. Lil Tech is a good hit maker. He's a good songwriter. Not a lyricist at all, but he knows how to make catchy music. Like I said, have not listened to this album. Full disclosure, transparency. But he did sell 48,000 first week, which, again, by rap standards right now, I think that's pretty good. I would consider it a win for Tecca. But I don't think it's necessarily an increase in popularity from his last album. I don't know that for... Well, what was that? There was... Tech was really good and really big. Plan A, I don't know if it reached the same highs. I didn't like it that much, honestly. Which is kind of why I've skipped out on Dopamine so far. Not that I won't necessarily go back for it one day. But again, so we've been through May and June. I've covered what I consider the major hip-hop releases, and it's really not much. It's not much that I care for. It's not much that I thought was particularly good or moved me. So we see this narrative again. Is hip-hop dying? Hip-hop's falling off. You're seeing country dominate the charts. Absolutely dominate. Barely any rappers are charting on the Billboard Hot 100. And people are driving this narrative, and it's like, I hate that. I gotta be honest, I hate that. I hate to see people disrespecting hip-hop in such a way. And what goes on in July and then follows into August will kind of prove that for me. And I think what made the highlights of these first 2 months, which mainly is Glockavelli and 13 Months of Sunshine, as well as Lotus, those are the highlights from these first 2 months. As you see mainstream adjacent artists like Key Glock and Lil Tecca continuing to be successful and continuing to be fairly respectable artists as well, even if they're not the craziest lyricists. You could see the artistic intent there. And you don't see a fall off from them like you did from Wayne sales wise, which is important and something you will see me harping on here as well as we move in to July. Now, what started off July was the God Does Like Ugly Prelux by JID. This was a 4-track EP. You had features from Eminem on here, as well as Six Lack and Lil Yachty. That Lil Yachty track was actually really good. This was a great EP. And as someone, I made a video where I was criticizing JID's rollout, talking about what he needed to do on God Does Like Ugly to succeed. This was that. The album rollout, he had some nice interviews that I watched. He didn't have that same presence that Clips had. We'll talk about them very soon. But this EP was a good start, and it showed that JID is, again, it's him just being the best rapper. It's him really just trying to be the best. And it was fun. It got me super excited for the album, and I think was what that rollout needed. Now, moving on to the best rap rollout I've seen in a good while. Let God Sort 'Em Out by Clips, which, by the way, these guys just performed at the Vatican. If you have not seen that, go watch that. I mean, what an incredible accomplishment. People are still going to say hip-hop is dead, but you had Malice, Pusha T, and Pharrell performing at the Vatican. Those two things can't even be true at the same time. 118,000 first week. That was proof of the success of the rollout. I don't want to harp on it too much here because, again, I did talk about it in that JID video. But what a way to bring in. You haven't dropped an album in 15 years, these guys. Pusha T is not like the most notable, like, mainstream guy. Like, he has his audience, but he's not dropping chart-topping hits. So for them to put up these numbers is remarkable. They outsold Lil Wayne, which, again, Lil Wayne had a pretty bad album. But even regardless, off name value alone, I never would have expected that. Excuse me. This album was perfect. I might still do a whole video on this album. Let me know in the comments if you want that, because I can confidently say this is the album of the decade so far. This is just a perfect album. I'll get the track list in front of me, and I will for some of these. And it's just, genuinely incredible what these three were able to do here. There's not a weak moment here. There's not a beat skip. There's not a second that doesn't feel important. Malice and Push are just lyrically killers here. And one thing I've always loved about Push is he doesn't have to get super technical like a Lupe Fiasco or an MF Doom using crazy vocabulary. It's just one-liners. And these guys are one-liners machines. Both of them paint vivid pictures. They have funny punchlines. They have relevant allusions. And just every line is so impactful. And they're a great example of more is less. I'm sure if you took art in middle school, high school, you had a teacher tell you that less is more. I'm sorry, I meant to say less is more before. And this is the definition of that. Because like I said, they're not wordy like a Lupe Fiasco, but they could paint just as, if not a more vivid picture of what's going on with their words. And then Pharrell just backdropped it so beautifully. There's not a song on this album that is below like an 8. And then other than Ace Trumpets, there's not a song on this album that is below like a 9, I would say. Like, genuinely, I've never been so quick to listen to an album and be like, all right, this is undeniably a top, probably 25 album of all time, in my opinion. You guys might say I'm glazing it, I might be gassing it, but I was so impressed. Start to finish, this album, not a second wasted. It is straight to the point, and that's why this album is still seeing success to today. And this was kind of the start. And yeah, it's not going to get better than this one moment. Let's keep it buck. Let's keep it genuine. It is not going to get better than this one moment right here. Because this album, like I said, it is the album of the decade. This might be the decade-defining album. So it does not get better than this. But it does set the tone for what is to come, where we see a plethora of other rappers make a comeback of sorts. We see a plethora of other rappers, and I want to verify this too with you right quick, because there's two things that have really made this summer great for hip-hop. One of them is what Clips did, where they refined their sound, they refined their style, they made it better than ever, and made it awesome. Because I'm sure if you watch me, I talk about Professor Sky's record review a lot. Shout out to him. Shout out to Rob Markman. Shout out to Justin Hunt. All those guys make great content. But one thing Professor Sky, as well as some of the other creators in that space, harp on is this same like summer of hip hop thing that I'm talking about. What makes it great is rappers reinventing themselves, rappers showing growth, and all that. And Clips does do that here, but not as much as some other artists we're going to talk about. And it's not just, there's the two lanes that make it great, right? There's the people like the Chance the Rappers who completely go left, show growth as a person, show artistic growth, and that is what made them have this successful comeback. Same for someone like Earl Sweatshirt, Joey Badass. But then Clips, as well as some Wu-Tang members who came through this summer that we're going to talk about, what really made their album special, their moment special, was not just their ability to show growth artistically and lyrically like Clips did, but more importantly, their ability to refine their sound. And this is just a beautiful album. A beautiful album. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, we got to talk about Jack Boys 2. In my mind, probably one of the worst albums of the decade. Probably the worst album I've listened to this year. I was severely let down by this. I wasn't a big fan of Jack Boys 1, so I didn't have high expectations. And yeah, there was not a single song here that I'm going back to. Every good moment that there was, because there was good moments, like on Champagne and Vacay, 2000 Excursion, Dumbo, as well as, believe it or not, what is even the name of this song? You only know it, Shine. All had great moments, all had great, rap sections, beats, verses attached to them. But they had other things that ruined them. And of course, for Shine, it is that wobbly wiggly whoa. If that wasn't on there, I would still listen to that song. The beat is ridiculous. Glorilla's verse is hard. But that's not the point. Travis Scott was creatively at his worst here. But one thing I wanted to touch on is Travis Scott is the biggest rapper in the game. Utopia was a smash hit. He re-released Days Before Rodeo onto streaming and sold over 300,000 first week. Those are ridiculous numbers. So for him to only put up 292,000 first week with Jack Boys 2, which is still, by the way, a ridiculous amount to sell as a rapper, especially on a tape like this. So not to take away from that, but that declination in sales from someone who is regarded as one of the top dogs mainstream, and for an album that was commercially and critically and casually panned by all fans, this is kind of going to build with that narrative where I'm talking about the summer of hip-hop. It goes along with Wayne, who is a mainstream juggernaut who dropped a flop. And they are taking a regression in sales and popularity for it. Well, we have other rappers who are becoming established, maybe more lyrically focused guys, like a JID, who are not smashing it out of the park, but they're taking those steps forward. And I think that is an even bigger win for hip-hop. I believe, I don't know. I honestly forget who, so shout out to whoever said it, but on one of the Culture United podcasts that Justin Hunt dropped a clip from, they were talking about superstars and rap, and someone said that, the rap superstars are kind of dying out as we have more, just more stars, more middle ground guys. And this is an example of that, and I think that's a good thing for hip-hop. I would rather have 10 guys sell, 30 to anywhere between like 25 and 45 in the rap environment that we're in that makes super important and spiritual and lyrical rap music than have, 5 to 10 that are ripping like 200,000-300,000, but it's ignorant shit like Jack Boys 2 was. The next July album I want to talk about is the aforementioned Raekwon album, The Emperor's New Clothes. Talk about an album that impressed the fuck out of me. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about an artist who's been in the game for a long time, refining their craft down to a T. You got the Griselda cut on here, Wild Corsicans. You have Conway, Benny, and Westside on there. That's great, right? That's kind of growth artistically as you see Raekwon link up with the young guys. But what this really is Raekwon over robust production, for the most part, doing mafioso adjacent rap. Not a lot of, very personal innuendos here. But it doesn't have to be, because he is just in his bag, genuinely. So one of my favorites here is Bear Hill, I think is the best track here. But you also got to have a shout out to 600 School with Ghostface and Method Man on there, as well as the Omerta with Nas, Get Out of Here, which also features Ghostface Killers, Deborah Night Wine with Marsha Ambrosia, and then The Guy That Plans It is also a banger. One Life with Stacey Barth as well. I mean, this is an amazing album. If you have not heard it, I recommended it. Not necessarily a commercial success, but just a win for hip-hop. When someone like Raekwon, 30 years into the game, if not more, dropped one of the best albums of all time and only built for Cuban links, but never really reached that success or that level of critical acclaim again. To come through and drop an album that I would consider to be like a mid-8 at this stage in his career, hats off to you, brother. That makes me happy to say that about someone like Raekwon, who I have a lot of respect for. By the way, ratings for albums I have not mentioned. The Carter 6 was like a high 2 to low 3. Dopamine, I didn't listen. Let God Sort It Out is pretty much a 10. Jack Boys 2 is a like high 2. This is a mid 8. Next album we're going to talk about, Don't Tap the Glass by Tyler, the Creator. Another huge commercial success, 197,000 first week, which, yes, is a little lower than Chromacopia, a little bit lower than maybe some of Tyler's past successes, but this was kind of sporadically announced. Definitely some marketing and rollout went into it. A lot of, because Tyler's normally thoughtful with that. This was super thoughtful as well, but just not as, it kind of just came. And for me, it went personally. This was like a light 7 to a higher 6 for me. I don't revisit a lot. Sugar on My Tongue, Sucker Free, and Ring Ring Ring. Some of my favorite tracks here, but it's just, this didn't really hit the mark for me. It didn't strike me as a dance album. Again, I don't think it's bad. It's good. It's quality raps, quality beats. Not anything I really revisit. And honestly, an album where I feel like I'm not necessarily the target demographic for it. But this was exciting for the general hip-hop fan base because Tyler is beloved, and I will always open new music from him with open arms. I will always accept new music from him with open arms, as I think most people will. Next album I want to talk about here, as we get into, let's see, last album of July that I want to talk about. And this, again, for me, is a commercial success. To see someone like Freddie Gibbs and The Alchemist come through on Alfredo 2 and sell 37,000 first week, that's a W. That's a W. I mean, Freddie Gibbs is someone who's coming off of the success of You Only Die Once, which personally I think is better than this album, but that's besides the point. Soul Sold Separately was great. The first Alfredo, an album for the decade, maybe a top 15 for the decade. That conversation is when we got to have. The first Alfredo is underrated. This one is good as well. The Alchemist production is so lush and vibrant here. 1995 is incredible. Every song here is honestly really good. This is like a high 7 to a low 8 for me. Personally, I have trouble figuring out where to place it just because, like, the raps are so good. And, like, Freddie is really, like, experimenting with his flow at a lot of points, and it's super interesting. You got great features from, like, Anderson .Paak, JID, and it's a fun tape, honestly. The only flaws I really have to poke here is content-wise. And that's one thing I loved about You Only Die Once, is, like, at points you were really getting, and Soul Sold Separately as well, you get this, like, really paranoid Freddie. You get him, like, rapping about being at the top of his game, waiting for that domino to fall. And it's interesting. You get to, like, get a little glimpse into Freddie's mind, what's going on in there. And this is just, like, you're getting a glimpse into his dick, to be honest. Like, this, he's just rapping about, like, tricking and fucking, and it's, like, it's cool. Like, because the beats are good, the flows are good, but it's not necessarily, like, begging me to go back. And for me personally, you might be hearing me, and it's like, I thought this was the summer that saved hip-hop. When you're saying this about Don't Tap the Glass, and you're saying that about Alfredo too, but you got to keep in mind, I'm just one man, because there are people who are saying that this is the album of the year. There are people out there who are saying Tyler's the album of the year, and that's the beautiful thing. This is what I'm saying with, we need, 20 rap stars instead of 5 superstars. We need 30 rap stars instead of 10 superstars, because this is better for hip-hop itself. This is better for the genre, and that's why this summer was a success, because you could have all these albums that all these people love and adore, and even if they're not the most commercially successful, and even if Alfredo 2 isn't in my top 4 albums to come out over the summer, I still bump the hell out of that shit. I still love it, and I'm still super happy we got it. So don't get caught up on the numbers I'm throwing out with my reviews. I'm just kind of doing that to give you a baseline, because people like the numbers, but personally, a lot of these albums I'm loving. That's the important thing. Alfredo 2, being as good as it is, selling 37,000 first week, is a huge W. And I think that's awesome for Freddie Gibbs and The Alchemist. Now we're moving on into August. August is the month where shit got, like, crazy. Like, this month will probably be looked back on in hip-hop history, just for the amount of albums I'm about to go through here. It's, like, it's incredible how many of these albums get underrated. Like, even myself talking about an Alfredo 2. Like, maybe I'm the one who's wrong, and I got all these other great albums, like Let God Sort Them Out, in my head, and I'm comparing Alfredo 2 to them. I'm like, all right, this just isn't even at that level. Like I said, it's been a potent summer, but it's also been a futuristic summer. Metro Boomin. This album, I I really liked. It's like a mid-7 for me. This was fun. Are the lyrics ignorant here? Yes. Is it about tricking and partying and dancing and all this stuff? Yeah. Just like Jack Boys 2 is, kind of like Alfredo 2 is. But you know what it is that makes this album special? It is such a clear throwback to 2000s Atlanta rap. And it's just done so well. Like Metro Boomin, being able to put together the work that he does here. Is it a little bloated? Yeah. But do I have a hell of a lot of fun every time I listen to this project? Hell yeah, I do. I mean, this was just fun all the way around. 23,000 first week is underwhelming for Metro, considering where he came from on Heroes and Villains. But he also had the Rap Avengers on Heroes and Villains. Here he had like, one or two Young Thug features. He had a Gucci Mane feature here and there, Quavo feature here and there. But a lot of it was Young Dro, Waka Flocka Flame, J Money, Rocco, Roscoe Dash, all these throwback rappers. And a lot of them I'm not even like crazy big fans of. But I like love some of their performances here. In particular, my two favorites, I Want It All. You're gonna try and sit here and tell me I Want It All isn't an anthem? That song is incredible. The other major one here is where is this at? Make It Make Sense. Oh, like all these songs just have such catchy melodies and the beats. They're brimming with personality. It's just a fun time. And I'm happy again that we got this album. That I could talk about this album in the same vein as in Alfredo 2 and these two albums even be in the same genre. Hip hop's back. Anyone who's saying otherwise is just wrong. The Last One by Gunna. Sold 80,000 first week. I didn't listen to this album. I don't really care to. I'm not a big fan of Gunna. He's been declining in his sales, though. Just like I was talking about with Travis Scott, where he's one of these mainstream juggernauts who doesn't innovate. He doesn't bring any personality. I didn't need to listen to the last one because I know it sounds like every album that Gunna's dropped since, Drip or Drown 2. I mean, this guy does not innovate. I don't care to listen to it. And that's no disrespect to Gunna. He seems like a cool guy. I'm not gonna, I'm not, so you could see me right now. I'm not someone who really needs to speak on the situation with him and Young Thug and all that. The bottom line is I've never really been a fan of Gunna. I've never resonated with his music. It's not for me, and it gets stale quick. He can make a good song, good feature every now and then. Not an artist that I care for. But to see him on the decline, normally, I'm not someone who's going to hate. I'm not going to say, I want to see him decline. But seeing his sales decline and all these other rappers I love who I think make objectively way better music increase, I think that decline from Gunna is necessary for someone like Clips to go and sell their pants off. It's necessary for someone like Jid to go and sell not a serious increase, but maintain and grow a little bit from the Forever Story. Gunna needs to drop off in sales for these other guys to be able to get the shine they deserve. So for that, I'm okay with it. Next up, God Does Like Ugly. Now, like I mentioned, not a big increase in sales. 32,000 first week for this album, 30,000 for the Forever Story. Now, one thing about the Forever Story is this album is still talked about to today. That album is a commercial success because it will probably just be spun for, the next 20, 30 years. Generational album right there, genuinely. Is God Does Like Ugly as good as that? No. But is it different in a lot of ways while still being similar and having a lot of the things that make the Forever Story great? Yeah. And that's what I love about this album. This album, high 8 for me. High 8. There's not, again, this is the type of album where there's not a lot of misses. You're getting a good mix of really rap and Jid. You're getting a good mix of Jid's incredible singing. I love how at points it feels like Jid slows his rapping down. Because normally he's the fast rap guy, but slows it down to show off his delivery, his tone, and his charisma on a track like Community. I really like that. And at other points on this album. The only song I don't like on here is On McAfee with Baby Kia. Just missed the mark for me. I don't really feels out of place here. But you have beautiful tracks like Wholeheartedly, like Four Keeps, Of Blue, What We On with Don Toliver is a great moment. I never would have expected these two rappers to have such good chemistry. Skate with Ciara and Earth Gang is a throwback bop that you could throw on in any setting and get dancing. VCRs with Vince Staples is not necessarily an unlikely collab, but one that I was excited for and didn't disappoint. Of course, I mentioned Community with Clips, which is incredible. Work is a sleeper banger. And You Ugly with West Side Gun was the perfect way to start this album. This album isn't as family-centric as The Forever Story. I think that's what made that album special. But you still get a lot of wisdom from Jid about where he is in his life, recently becoming his father, and most importantly, his spirituality, which is the focus point of this album. And there is still the familial themes, but it's not as a coherent story, not as tightly knit as The Forever Story. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I like the looser feel to it, and it feels like Jid genuinely just wanted to make some of the best songs he can in a couple of different varieties, and he succeeded with that. Love this album, and I'm happy that we got it. Another album that I got nothing that I would say very much similar stuff about is Starline by Chance the Rapper. Sold 22,000 first week. Would anyone have expected that after the big day? Was anyone expecting that after how many times he kind of started and stopped this rollout? No. What happened was this album is genuinely good. I see people online champion this as their best album of 2025. And that's why this summer is special. Because for me personally, it's not quite there. It's a low 8, and it's incredible. I think if you cut a couple tracks out of here, I could actually give you the exact ones that I would cut out. Everything from Gun in Yo Purse to Speed of Light, I'm good without. The second half of this album, not as strong as the first, for sure. And I think that does hold it back. But you also have incredibly potent tracks in terms of being socially conscious, like No More Old Men and The Negro Problem, Star Side. You got songs where he's speaking about his relationship with his ex-wife, like Space and Time and Link Me in the Future. You get a very kind of personal track about Chance's upbringing from in Tree with Lil Wayne and Smino, although it's not quite presented as that. As Speed of Light, Burn Your Block, and Gun in Your Purse are all misses to me. I'm really not feeling those, and that does hold this album back. The highs and the lows, still an incredible track that I love to go back to. I mean, Joey Badass killed it on there. Chance killed it. That is a perfect record. And Starline, as someone who personally has never been big on Chance, I can say I'm really happy with this project. I can say we're lucky to have received a project of this quality. And again, it's that fact that we have this level of variety and high quality projects. That is the reason why hip-hop is back. I want to keep hammering that in. We can't be discrediting a genre that is this healthy and well off in terms of the level of creativity, authenticity, songwriting, artistry, personality, all these incredible qualities that all these different artists have and are able to bring. We can't just discredit it and say that it's falling off because we don't have Drake putting up 300,000 first week, 400,000 first week on a mid project. Let's put some respect on real hip-hop because they're carrying the torch right now. Another great album. I'm not talking about the sales here because I really just want to give a shout to Rich Brian's Where's My Head. This album is so slept on. I just want to say personally, Rich Brian is a rapper, so slept on. If you've never listened to him, I'd recommend checking him out. He's this kid from, grew up in Indonesia, moved over to America to become a rapper. He raps about very unique experiences. And I love his voice in hip-hop. The Sailor, I think, is his best album, but Where's My Head At? Mid-8 seriously impressed me with him being able to replicate such a good album. And he's the type of guy who, he's just giving you music where his head is at. Obviously, you can tell by the title, he's not quite sure. You're getting a lot of different emotions, thoughts, and all types of certain stuff regarding his relationship with his family, his relationship with women, his relationship with himself, his relationship with hip-hop. And it's all here. He's serving it up in different ways. The soundscapes are beautiful, and I just can't recommend this album enough. Truly amazing. Another one we got to talk about is Live, Love, Laugh by Earl Sweatshirt. This is another album for me, like a low 7. I wasn't crazy about this, but I'm also have never been the biggest Earl Sweatshirt fan. Tourmaline is the only track I'm really going to revisit here. And again, this album is just not as much for me as it is other people. This album reads to me more as poetry over gothic instrumentals than it does hip-hop. Not that that's not hip-hop, but this is in a league of its own when it comes to the songwriting. It is incredible, honestly. It really is. It's just I'm not the type of person who's always gonna want to listen to that when I'm not like sitting there breaking down the lyrics. This sold 9.4 thousand first week, which I think is a W for Earl considering the type of music that he makes. And there are again people out there who are discussing the greatness of this album. I'm not quite the target demographic, the type of person who's really gonna love this, but I still appreciate it. Another great album, similar to the Emperor's New Clothes Raekwon album we talked about, Supreme Clientele 2 by Ghostface Killah. Light 8 here for me. And again, there's nothing that is really Ghostface is doing his thing. He's not really particularly like coming to any new conclusion. He's still rapping about his experience as a dealer, about his luxurious wealth. I love this guy's similes and metaphors are through the roof. He's hilarious. He's one of the most charismatic rappers of all time. Production is good. There's a lot of skits, and I think if you cut one or two tracks off here, you'd be all right, because like this is one of those albums where you just get a bunch of amazing, great tracks, none that are really better than the rest, none that really fall off. It's just consistently really good. My favorite, though, if you want one track that I would say really is the best head above the others, what's it called? Georgie Porgy. If you haven't listened to Ghostface Killah and you want to hear some new stuff from him, that's the song. Tap that right there. Hit the link. Next up, I got for you Free by Kid Cudi. You want to hear an interesting fun fact in 2025? Earl Sweatshirt outsold Kid Cudi in first week sales. This is a rapper who was a juggernaut for a long time. He lost the trust of a lot of his fans multiple times throughout the course of his career when it comes to dropping a good project. And this album, for me, it regained it a little bit. Only sold 9.2 thousand first week. I don't think Cudi's sales matter at this point in his career. Kind of like Ghostface and Raekwon. He's at the point where he's becoming a legacy act. He's been in the game close to 20 years, probably like 17, 18. So I'm not really tripping about the sales, what that means for hip-hop or what it doesn't mean, especially since he hasn't been like hasn't had a serious Billboard hit in like 5 years. Free. I think people are writing this album off because it's Kid Cudi. But let me tell you, the last 3 tracks of this album are beautiful. Or the last 4, I should say. But Past Life, Picnic in Paris, and Stargazing in particular, what a 3-track run that is. I mean, that is incredible. And this album works for me. It's like a light to mid 7. What works about this album is because Kid Cudi's not trying the new bullshit he was on Insano. He's trying to give you music like he was on Man on the Moon. But he's also doing that while incorporating the rock aesthetics and guitars that made people hate him on Speed and Bullet to Heaven and these other albums where he got super experimental. He kind of meshes these two together and you get this very like airy atmosphere, right? The sonics are incredible. You also get these guitars where they're not super rough. Cudi's singing gets rough at points. He's not always tuning it up, but it sounds good. It sounds passionate. Truman Show, another credible moment. I mean, I like genuinely recommend this pretty hard because he's also giving you like the wrap up. This kind of feels like an epilogue. It's called Free for a reason. He's rapping about being free from his shackles of mentally finding love. He's singing to you about how he got to where he is in this life and being able to appreciate life. He's looking back at his past life through negative and positive lenses. And the last track, Saltwater, he even has a spoken word verse talking about just how throughout his life he feel like he has lacked the certain capacities to be happy and how he didn't have love and now he's surrounded by it. As someone who Cudi did a lot for me, I'm not someone who advocates for saying, oh, this artist saved my life. I don't think that's a thing because music is important and great and helpful for mental health journeys, but you yourself personally is always going to be the strongest and always going to be the driving force of that. But regardless of that, ramble aside, Cudi is always going to be kind of that guy in a sense to me where I was able to come to his music when I was having tough times, and this is like a great epilogue for me. Maybe that's why I'm rating it like I am, because the personal connection, but I couldn't recommend this album enough. It was a fun time for me. Quick listen. And Kid Cudi is redeemed for the Insano and the Nitro Mega Insano with this one. We got 3 more I want to talk about in August. I'm trying to maybe go a little faster because, like I said, this summer was crazy. Next up, we got Kiari by Offset. Now, Cardi B's album did just drop recently. I haven't listened yet. I'm interested to see how this pairs with this because this was an album where, like, first listen, I was really impressed. After coming back to it, I think I was gassing it a little bit. It's like a light 6 for me. And I like Offset. He does good solo albums. His most impressive thing is his flow, and he flows good here. There's good production. This is another album where, to me, it kind of screams overcompensating. 29,000 first week, by the way, which is a bit of a fall off from Set It Off, but also this was a lot more of a low-key release than his last solo projects. For someone who would have had at this point in his life a lot to rap about, he really doesn't do it, especially in terms of his divorce with Cardi B and how that might have affected his public family dynamics. He just does not get into that. He raps about, he raps lyrics saying like, last year I lost a bitch, now this year I got a bitch and another one and another one and another one. He's talking about it just for me personally, it doesn't really hit. He's kind of just trying to play it cool with that stuff. And when he does get into relationship stuff, or you got the song on here, what's it called? All of My Hoes. It's kind of like a My Collection by Future, where he's rapping about how all of his hoes are still his hoes, and it's like, it doesn't hit. There are good moments here, like Different Species with Gunna, Run It Up by Key Glock, the intro, Enemies, Checkmate Smooth, some of my favorite tracks here. And there are songs where he, of course, raps about the tragic passing of Takeoff, who was brutally murdered. Of course, fellow Migo mate. He's got one or two tracks here touching on it. They're, of course, emotional. The track with John Legend in particular, Offset's verses are great. But I'm not a big fan of John Legend singing. I don't think this album is bad by any means. I think this was kind of just the newest Offset release. To put it simply, he didn't do much to innovate. All of his albums kind of follow that simple formula where he gives you songs with like really good flows, good trap production, great rapping. He matches the sound at the time and gives you a couple moments of vulnerability and personality. This is the same as that, except the ratio is I think there's less vulnerability than ever when he had the most to talk about, which I think maybe holds it down for me. Heels Have Eyes 2 by Westside Gunn, another album I want to touch on, just because Westside Gunn is someone who doesn't even fit into like the popularity crux, because he just has his audience and he caters to them all the time. Like, he's just someone who operates kind of outside of the mainstream hip-hop space despite his popularity. I think this is his best album in a couple of years, probably since 10. And I just wanted to note that in here. I think all the tracks are really good, and Westside Gunn drops a lot, so sometimes it feels like he's getting stale. And this was a nice refresher for me, because I was kind of getting to that point with 12, with the first Heels Have Eyes, with Still Praying. None of those hit super hard for me. This one I was like, all right, Westside still got it, and I'm happy. This is like a light 8 for me. Great album, one of my favorites from him recently. Last one I want to talk about, Lonely at the Top by Joey Badass. Weird outlier here when it comes to the popularity thing, because this was, for all intents and purposes, commercially a flop. I almost said a slop. Less than 9,000 first week, which is not like terrible for him, but considering he was coming off of that West Coast beef, considering that he had the build up, hadn't dropped in a while, he had these real mainstream moments. I kind of thought this was going to be a moment for him, especially considering the quality of this album. This album is great, probably like a low 8 for me. You had Westside Gunn on here, ASAP Ferg, Ty Dolla $ign. You had the BK's Finest Cypher, which was fucking awesome. Rhapsody and Absol. I think this album had potential to sell better than it did. But I do like this album. I like the evolution from Joey, where you're not getting super strict boom bap cool guy, although you do get more mafioso vibes from him on a track like Dark Aura. But you get some kind of dancey vibes on a track like Super Flea. Serious highlights throughout this album. But you also get like Underwater and 3 Feet Away, where you have Joey kind of talking about feeling lonely in his life. You have him grappling with acting and rapping and his family life, and becoming 30, is he 30? I think he's maybe 28 or 29, but still becoming older, grappling with financial responsibility, all of these things. And it's super interesting. I do like this album a lot. Commercially, it's kind of the one outlier here where I don't think he's increased his sales. I could actually check real quick what 2000 did first week. But I think it was probably more than 9K. Let's see. Yeah, Joey Badass, I think, is this weird kind of anomaly. 22,000 first week, which is weird because that album was a success and it was loved. A couple years later, he has a mainstream moment. Excuse me, and doesn't sell the best. I'm a huge Joey Badass fan, so I wasn't disappointed by that, but I was hoping to see him succeed. But anyways, I'll cut it off here because it's been a while. We got like 20 albums that we went through today, so definitely in the comments let me know which of these were your favorite. Are any of these your album of the year? What type of content and rap stuff do you want to see me talking about in the future, so I know to cater that to you? If you made it to this point in the video, I appreciate you hanging out. Definitely, again, like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. I hope life is going well for you, and I will catch you in the next one. Doses.